This is Valley News Live at 5.
A portion of Interstate 94 remains closed as crews continue to clear up after a semi rolled earlier today. That's a live look. It's exit 6 toward Detroit Lakes. It's unclear how long that one lane will be closed. Minnesota State Patrol didn't say what the cause of the crash was, but did say that drivers need to be prepared and need to slow down. Hello again, everyone, on this Friday. Just as our first alert storm team told us, the snow has let up and the winds are easing up as well. Let's toss it over to Hutch to get up to speed on round one of the first bout with winter conditions. Hutch?
Mike, thanks so much. Good Friday evening, everyone. We did get some measurements of snow that were lofty, not quite as high as that potential did indicate because of that heavy wet nature of the snow, but nearly 6 inches showing here. Thanks, Sharon, for sharing your photo there of the Shevlin area as we worked our way through the day. Here's some other snowfall totals. 1.1 inches in the Fargo-Moorhead area, almost 2 in Grand Forks. We had a couple 6-inch reports in Warroad and Shevlin and the Carrington and Michigan areas at 3 or more inches of snow as we looked out towards Pembina. So some taste of winter certainly across the valley. The snowfall seems to be wrapping up, but the wind today and overnight last night kept us all awake. It was howling, screaming. 60-mile-per-hour gusts in Grand Forks, 55-mile-per-hour gusts in Fargo and points to the west. Cameras show not much snowfall, but we still have the winds to contend with, where we did get some significant snow in central Minnesota. There some blowing snow still out there with the winds gustiest right here in the Red River Valley. Where you see the colors, we have gusts still near 40 miles per hour. And out in open country, that is reducing visibility to under a mile at times. Park Rapids into Wadena County seems to be the area of most concern right now. As we take a look, round 2 is on its way for Saturday. Periods of snow will add up, and some of us will see more snow with round 2 than we did with round 1. Simply because we'll be colder during the event. Doesn't come with as much wind, but we'll have hour-by-hour details on your Saturday here in just a few moments. Mike, suffice it to say, get that survival kit in the vehicle for tonight. It's going to be quite cold. We'll detail that as well.
Good advice. Thanks. Earlier today, road conditions were worse than they are now. 2 pickups crashed at the intersection of 13th Avenue South and 45th Street this morning. And slippery roads and strong winds were to blame for several crashes this morning on both sides of the Red River. Minnesota State Patrol reporting at least 18 cars sliding off the road. 9 semis had jackknifed. Meanwhile, an SUV collided with a bus carrying the Dickinson State football team on an icy bridge in western North Dakota. Authorities say the driver of the SUV entered the median and slid back into the eastbound lane and was hit by the bus. The driver and his passenger of the SUV were hurt. No one on the bus was hurt. Meanwhile, authorities are now looking for a driver suspected in a hit-and-run crash. This happened along Highway 34 east of Detroit Lakes around 8 last night. Investigators say a woman was walking when a white Volvo semi pulling a trailer hit her, then kept going. Authorities say the passenger's side door is damaged. The 42-year-old woman is in the hospital with life-threatening injuries. The crash report does say that alcohol was involved. An NDSU student has appeared to have stolen a road sign as part of the Devious Licks TikTok challenge. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time an incident like this has been connected to the campus. In September, resident halls were seeing a high level of vandalism in connection to that challenge. The university released a statement saying that vandalism violates the student code of conduct. Olympic gold medalist and Minnesota native Suni Lee says that she was recently the victim of anti-Asian violence. She said the incident happened when she was waiting for an Uber with friends, all of whom are of Asian descent. When a car drove by, Lee said people inside began shouting racial slurs before speeding off and then pepper spraying her arm. A group that tracks incidents of discrimination and hate against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders documented 3,800 incidents from March 2020 to February of this year. Now that's up from 2,600 the year before. A week after the Houston Music Festival turned deadly, more questions are emerging over who should be held accountable for the 9 deaths and hundreds of injuries resulting from that crowd surge. Safety measures at the event has been a focus as lawsuits against rapper Travis Scott, festival organizers, and others are mounting. Chris Wynn has the latest.
In Houston, a desperate plea for answers and accountability.
Nobody should ever die from going to a concert.
1 week after the Astroworld Music Festival turned deadly.
People were literally fighting for their life just to try to get out of there.
The death toll now up to 9 as family members demand justice for their loved ones. A 9-year-old boy who is seriously injured remains in a medically induced coma, according to his family's lawyer. Many concert goers describing the experience as traumatizing.
I remember being crushed from every side by human bodies.
With the crowd of about 50,000 tightly packed in places, some in the audience said it felt like a death trap as waves of people surged toward the stage during Travis Scott's performance. Officials say he continued to play for about 30 minutes after emergency services declared the concert a mass casualty event.
We don't know when he was notified, if he was notified, and then to what degree.
More than 90 lawsuits have now been filed against the rapper, Live Nation, and other festival organizers. But Scott's attorney maintains he didn't know what was happening in the crowd or of the emergency services declaration.
He's up there trying to perform. He does not have any ability to know what's going on down below.
The festival organizer and promoter released a joint statement saying full refunds are being offered for all those who bought tickets and that a fund is being set up to help with costs for medical expenses. I'm Chris Wynn reporting.
Here at home, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum has just signed into law a bill that would ban critical race theory. That bill bans the theory from being taught in schools, but lawmakers and educators say they have no proof that it's being taught outside of examples in college courses. Lawmakers say that they're trying to keep it from creeping in after concerned parents contacted them. Those against the bill say the bill would set a precedent of the legislature putting limits on classrooms. Meanwhile, a bill to reform vaccine mandate powers is heading to the governor's desk. It bans state and local governments from ordering vaccine mandates. Under this bill, companies will still be allowed to install their own vaccine mandates for their employees. If the bill becomes law, it could see conflict with the lawsuit pending vaccine mandate for large companies from the Biden administration. And if the courts rule the federal mandate is legal, the North Dakota bill would only apply to companies with less than 100 employees. Climbing COVID cases are taking a toll on small Minnesota hospitals. Doctors in some rural parts of the state say this is the worst they've seen since the pandemic began. A doctor in Sauk Center says last weekend a COVID patient spent 18 hours on a ventilator as her team worked to find a better place for care because there was no ICU on site.
From Grand Forks to Fargo to Sioux Falls to Duluth to Mankato to Mayo, through the cities, there were no ICU beds anywhere that could take this patient.
According to the Minnesota Department of Health, Sauk Center surrounds some of the state's least vaccinated counties where 40 to 50% of the population has had at least one dose. Last month, rural hospitals in Minnesota cared for more COVID patients than Twin Cities hospitals. President Biden focuses efforts today on two big challenges facing his administration and the country: consumer prices and COVID cases, both on the rise. He held a cabinet meeting to push forward on infrastructure and his social spending agenda, plans he believes will help curb inflation. Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
And I have a lot of experience in doing that.
President Biden meeting with top officials in his cabinet today, rallying the troops to act on rising COVID cases in several states and soaring inflation nationwide. Consumers are feeling the pinch of increased prices from the grocery store to the gas pump.
The gas prices are bananas.
And spiking energy costs may only get worse in the winter months.
You have to heat your home and, you just have to pay the higher cost.
President Biden naming a new leader to implement the bipartisan infrastructure bill. He's also pushing his climate and social spending package, insisting it will ease inflation by reducing costs from child care to prescription drugs.
It'll create millions of new jobs, it will grow the economy.
But accelerating inflation could make at least one key moderate Democrat hit the brakes on supporting more spending. As White House officials strategize their path forward, the president set to add a critical role to the war against COVID. Robert Califf, the anticipated nominee to head the Food and Drug Administration. It comes as 17 states have seen a double-digit increase in infections the past 2 weeks. In Colorado, where hospitals are strained, the governor making anyone 18 and older eligible for a COVID booster shot. But as health officials weigh that change nationwide,
the absolute focus needs to be first and second doses. That's what keeps a hospital out of crisis.
Mounting pressure on President Biden to curb rising COVID cases and costs heading into the holidays.
And next week will be a busy one for the president. He'll sign the bipartisan infrastructure bill into law on Monday before hitting the road to try and sell his sweeping social and climate change plans to the American public. Later on, you can't judge a book by its cover, right? What makes these classic cars run like today's new vehicles?
And we did get some snow across the region, but round 2 is on its way for another First Alert Weather Day on Saturday. Hour-by-hour details are straight ahead as we still have wind and reduced visibility on slippery roads across the valley tonight. We'll have your forecast next.
Valley